VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
Well, thank you, Mr. Morris, and welcome to Crosstalk as we have topics to talk about today that I think are very important. In fact, it's one basic topic. I know through the history of our country, we've sought to provide safety and security for the weaker vessel, our wives, our daughters, women in our families. We've always talked about the importance of being protective of our families and whatever. But what's happened, of course, over the years, we have had certain policies set up that protected women from being involved in combat. During the Second World War, they worked in non-combatant involvement, such as maybe ammunition plants or helping to put aircraft together. We have some relatives in our family tree that were involved in helping put bombers together. Husband and wife involved in the defense work. But never was it assumed, aside from a nurse or someone to tend to the wounded, was it ever acceptable to put a woman on the front lines in combat. Interestingly enough, of course, when you have the role of women's liberation, that they feel they are unequals, and of course, we're not talking about equal. We're talking about special. A woman is designed by God to be a very special person, and those who understand the importance of having those lines of definition understand that a woman is a special vessel designed by God to nurture, to bring forth life, to be a helpmeet and a support for her husband, and all of the other issues. Of course, we find that there are those who choose to try to be equal, not special, but equal. And so it's not uncommon periodically now in today's economy, and it's downright frightening, but I saw a lady on the street here about a year ago who was dressed in street work clothing, running a jackhammer, breaking concrete. I mean, this is not women's work. I mean, the weaker vessel is very special, need to be protected. But on and on the story goes, and then you find them doing labor that is hazardous, labor that is dangerous, labor that is demeaning to that calling. And along comes, of course, those say, well, I can run a ship as good as any man. And of course, the ego part of it and the desire to transcend in responsibility, to say, well, I'm equal to any man. If you look at the evaluation, not only equal, but more special than a man. But what's happened, of course, is that the issue of women's liberation has brought things to a head. Now, we have an issue today. This is datelined the 24th of January at 5:25 p.m., the dateline on this story. It says the U.S. Department of Defense has decided to let women serve on the front lines, which would place them in extremely dangerous situations and possibly include them in any future draft. Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta announced Thursday the decision to overturn the 1994 rule prohibiting women from being assigned to smaller ground combat units. Now, I'm going to make a comment here. I'm sure that there are lady pilots that can be as good pilots, if not better than some. I mean, we see that with the airlines. Military experts say that this is basically a radical diversity agenda. It's harmful for women and potentially dangerous for the country. Now, Elaine Donnelly, president of the Center for Military Readiness, said that Panetta's ill-advised action will burden many fighting units. It will make military life more difficult and more dangerous for men and women alike, she said. It will also affect any unsuspecting civilian woman who will face equal obligations to register for selective service when a future federal court rules in favor of litigation brought by the ACLU on behalf of men. Now, Colonel Ron Cruz, the executive director of the Chaplain Alliance for Religious Liberty, is also concerned it will lead to women being drafted into war zones. We as a country are losing something in terms of giving honor to our females, Cruz told Citizen Link. Is that what moms and dads really want for their daughters? He also mentioned the potential problems stemming from men and women living and serving in close quarters. I hate that we're putting commanders in positions where they have to be concerned about things other than the mission at hand, Cruz said. Women for years have been serving in the military with great skill and courage, he explained. It's a matter of what's best on the ground. Retired Colonel Bill Spencer, Citizen Link's national representative of Family Policy Council, said that he wants to see research that supports Leon Panetta's decision. You want your defenders to be the best trained, said Spencer, who spent nearly 29 years in the U.S. Air Force. War is not a game where you are looking for a level playing field. Where is the data that supports women serving in these combat roles? Now, of course, Mr. Panetta has a different take on this, and he said, well, allowing women to serve in combat roles will strengthen the U.S. military's ability to win wars. That's what Mr. Panetta said Thursday, shortly before his official announcement of the landmark change. Our military is more capable and our force is more powerful when we use all of the great diverse strengths of the American people, Panetta said, at a Pentagon ceremony in remembrance of Martin Luther King Jr. Now, every person in today's military has made a solemn commitment to fight and, if necessary, to die for our nation's defense, he said. We owe it to them to allow them to pursue every avenue of military service for which they are fully prepared and qualified. My insert here, fully prepared and qualified, may bring us back to a question. Their career success and their specific opportunities should be based solely on their ability to be successfully carrying out the assigned mission. Everyone deserves a chance. Well, we're going to pause a moment here and ask if the carrying out of a mission is a chance game. Is it something which we choose simply on a roulette, and it's a chance if it works or if it doesn't work? Now, the decision to lift the ban on women serving in combat presents a daunting challenge to top military leaders, who now will have to decide which, if any, jobs they believe should be open only to men. Panetta planned to announce at the Pentagon News Conference that more than 230,000 battlefront posts, 230,000, many in the Army or in the Marine infantry units, and in potentially elite commando jobs, are now open to women. It will be up to military service chiefs to determine or to recommend and defend whether women should be excluded from any of these more demanding and deadly positions, such as Navy SEALs or the Army's Delta Force. Now, this is what we're talking about here, folks, and I've heard the discussion come from military people especially, where military men, let's say they are trapped in a burning tank, and someone who has the label of being a military person is called upon to try and rescue someone who's trapped and pull them out of the trapdoor of a burning tank. And because of their physical limitations, somebody else dies. I know the rigorous training that goes on in the military, the muscle building and the endurance factors and all of the other things. And the questions are floating today everywhere. Now, former Department of Defense General challenges Panetta's directive by saying it may be unconstitutional. Reacting to reports that outgoing Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta is lifting the Pentagon's longstanding ban on women serving in combat, former DoD Inspector General Joseph Schmitz tells Newsmax that he believes that the decision will lead to a degrading of good order and discipline and may even be unconstitutional. Well, senior defense officials say the Pentagon chief Panetta is removing the military's ban on women serving in combat, opening hundreds of thousands of front-line positions and potentially elite commando jobs after more than a decade at war. Introducing mixed combat units, in my experience and judgment, will inevitably lead to a degradation of good order and discipline, asserted Schmitz, a recognized constitutional expert who held the Department of Defense top investigator from April 2002 to September 2005, after 27 years of naval service. Well, comes the question. Here is this something that is degrading women, or saying that they are not, by not putting them in a place of combat, that is degrading them or denying them? Well, General Martin Dempsey, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said Thursday that with women now eligible to fill combat roles in the military, commanders must justify why any woman might be excluded. And if women can't meet any unit standards, the Pentagon will ask, does it really have to be that high, meaning the standard? And so, physically weaker, physically unable to do the same things that men who have been trained for these heavy-duty jobs, and he's saying that we need to drop our standards. Now, an ex-SEAL, Mr. Zink, he said this, nearly certain that women in combat will cost lives. Ryan Zink reacted sharply to Wednesday's news, and the Obama administration will drop their prohibition against women serving in military, warning it's nearly certain to cost lives. A woman in combat, perhaps a woman who has been some heavy object fallen on her or trapped by circumstances. What man would not turn and go back or seek to protect a woman in combat? Next question, will they register for the draft? And of course, we have many people that are saying that this is a very irresponsible action. Now, when we come back after the break, Baptist Press has made some comments about this, and I thought we would share those with you, and then we're going to open our phone lines and find out exactly what you think today about this business of allowing women now to go into the front lines, serving in combat positions. Some of you women, let us know how you feel about that type of a hazard being placed in your life. As we take a moment here, you're listening to Crosstalk on the VCU America Radio Network. We'll be right back.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, president of the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, has plate tectonics always been accepted by scientists?
Chris, up until about 1960, you'd have a hard time finding any scientist who believed in it. But about that time, a number of scientific observations began to point toward plate tectonics, and now everybody believes in it. Compare this with creation evolution. Certainly evolution is a dominant view among university professors, but creation is held by many in the public and a lot of scientists also. Yet the evidence for it is censored out of public discussion. Censorship of information for plate tectonics or creation or anything else never does any good, and yet it's creation that's being censored out of the public arena today. How much better if we'd go back to Genesis and get our thinking straight from the start?
For more on creation, visit our website at www.icr.org. For the Institute for Creation Research, I'm Chris O'Brien. Thanks for tuning in.
And welcome back to Crosstalk, where today we're talking about women in combat, the very nature of a woman. Does that place in your minds, ladies, as you're thinking about you, your daughters, your relatives going into combat? Well, I mean, front lines. I mean, talking about throwing grenades, being there as the bullets are flying overhead and perhaps becoming a target very easily in today's technology. Well, Louisville, Kentucky, and Baptist Press have made this statement. Even before the U.S. Defense Secretary Leon Panetta announced that the military was lifting its ban on women in combat, professor and theologian Owen Strachan was speaking out against such a policy, saying it not only went against Scripture, but also defied common sense. The new executive director of the Council on Biblical Manhood and Womanhood, Strachan, penned a column for Christianity Today late last year, outlining the biblical case against placing a woman on the front lines of combat. Following the Pentagon's announcement, Baptist Press conducted an email interview with Strachan, who also serves as assistant professor of theology and church history at Boyce College in Louisville, Kentucky. What follows is the transcript. And Strachan said this: "My theology of war and women in combat is directly related to my theology of sex and gender. When it comes to making mankind in his image, God's image, God creates Adam first. He makes Eve from Adam. Her body is literally made from his, which signals both Adam's leadership and his duty to protect Eve. In other words, Adam gives his body so that Eve may exist. He is called for the rest of his life to give his body so that Eve may thrive. This is the starting place for distinctions between the sexes. God doesn't make blob A into Adam and blob B into Eve. He doesn't make a gender-neutral people. We don't believe in a divine creation of Teletubby, or they called it Teletubby-esque nature as Christians. The Bible shows, as a matter of first principles, that men and women are different, distinct, and complementary. And when Eve is brought to Adam with her distinct shape and form, Adam rejoices. He cries out, 'At last is bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh.' And Adam delights in Eve, the one taken from man." Now, this is a statement from Professor Strachan. This is from Baptist Press, dealing with women in combat. And women, of course, in combat, Mr. Michael Faust of the Baptist Press made this issue. He said, in fact, it was Baptist Press from their Washington headquarters, Defense Secretary Panetta's announcement that the military will remove its ban on women in combat drew criticism from several Southern Baptist leaders who expressed concern over privacy and military effectiveness, and also warned the move is part of a larger societal effort to blur differences between men and women. Now, Panetta made his announcement Thursday, January 24th, saying that the removal of the ban had unanimous approval from the Joint Chiefs of Staff, with the removal of about 237,000 positions on or near the front lines of combat that are now open to women. Well, the question, folks, is what do you think about this? What's your reaction to this? Because it can well affect you, your family, your children. And as women, again, you have single women who are involved in a career. Nobody's bashing anybody here. You might be working as an accountant or working in business, or the Lord someday calls you to become a mother. And then you think about your daughter. Would you like that daughter to be involved in combat, where the new high-tech weapons of destruction, you talk about biological warfare, atomic issues, the electromagnetic pulse, all of these other things that are out there, and you think that it's necessary now to send our women into combat. Our telephone number is 800-733-9829. If you'd like to call and make your comments on our topic today, 800-733-9829. And your thoughts, your reaction to Leon Panetta's new pronouncement that women should be allowed to go to combat right out there, right on the fighting lines, right along with men. And, of course, we think about even some of the social issues of close cohabitation, if you please, or habitation, which sometimes becomes cohabitation, which is, again, an invitation to moral disaster. There you find it. And our lines, by the way, are jammed, totally jammed at this moment. And we'll be glad to take your calls. And I will be sharing that with you in just a moment. One word to share with you, and I know that a number of the staff here at VCY have been going through some physical needs and have some physical burdens to carry. And I speak generally because there are several staff members who are facing serious issues. I wonder if you just remember to pray for them. Pray that God will give them strength, that God will guide the physicians who are working with trying to deal with these issues, and that their lives might be strengthened, and that the medications and whatever, or God's hand of miracle, might be that which would strengthen these loyal staff people who have been on the staff for some time. And we are so grateful. But as we all struggle with those physical things, we know that our life is not made of cast iron, but we thank God for a loyal staff who are seeking to be faithful in service. Let's go right now to Chippewa Falls and talk with Bradford. And Brad, you are on the air. Brad, what do you think?
The purpose of the military is to protect women and children, not to enlist them. And this standard changing, that's what always happens when they enlist women, because they can't meet the standard. But what if a 14-year-old kid can meet the standard? Then should we enlist them too? I mean, is this Germany?
Yeah, Hitler's Youth. Yeah,
it's just ridiculous.
Brad, thanks. Thanks for sharing. Were you in the military?
Yeah, I have 9 years in.
9 years. Well, comes from a qualified respondent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
He knows of which he speaks. Let's go to Nancy Joe in Brookfield, Wisconsin. Nancy Joe, you're on the air.
Oh, hello, Vic. Thank you for taking my call. Quickly, years ago I knew a young lady that worked out at the same gym I worked out at.
Mm-hmm.
And she was about 4'11", and she worked out probably 5 or 6 hours a day because she wanted to be a firefighter.
Mm-hmm.
And she kept getting refused by whatever department she was applying for. They kept saying, no, we just can't handle it. Sorry, you're in shape, but can't do it. And when you realize you have to carry those hoses that weigh a gazillion pounds and keep up with a man that's your partner, and everyone's life depends on you, I mean, it's really not good. And what do they say? When there's a weak link in the chain,
yeah, that's it.
The whole chain is unsafe. And she never did get accepted, and she was just dying because she wanted to be a firefighter. And I thought, well, maybe you can be a dispatcher. You can work in the fire department or something. There must be some other role for these women. Come on. It is not only is it impractical, these women cannot carry what men can carry. They just can't.
Well, Nancy Jo, for years there have been numerous jobs that women have carried in the munitions business, even in the electronics field, wiring circuit boards. Some of these circuit boards operate the very drones that are out there flying. I mean, it's you know the story.
Of course I do, and let them do that. But this frontline stuff, and besides the moral thing, which you did bring up too, please, come on. Is that what we're just doing, inviting the homosexuality and the feminization of our military? It's not right. That just isn't.
Nancy Jo, thank you.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you.
Yes, bye-bye.
Let's go to Lodi, Wisconsin, and talk with Charlie. And Charlie, you're on the air.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Vic. Good show. I'm speaking as a pastor and a combat veteran in Vietnam from 69 to 70 with the 3rd Marine Division. And I can't help, sir, but feel that they're doing this intentionally to destroy our military capability. Now, please keep in mind, above all we've discussed so far today, there's the issue of a foxhole and close-quarter troops. In other words, when we were in the field, you don't have bathrooms. You don't have showers.
No.
You just go where nature calls. So you can just throw privacy out the window. Now, here's Corporal Tony and Sergeant Jim, and they're in a foxhole, and they're with Susie.
Yeah.
And Susie's got the hots for one guy, and the other guy is jealous.
Yeah, let's be careful on our descriptions, okay?
That's all I got to say. Thank you, Vic.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. Appreciate that. We want to be careful without too much graphic description, but we know what you're saying. I think all of us I can understand that. Timothy in Waukesha, Wisconsin. Timothy, you're on the air.
Vic, I definitely will pray for the staff members there on for VCY.
Please,
But I want to say it's ridiculous, but it's a subtle way that the enemy is dividing the family and causing cracks in the armor of the family that God designed. And what's next is going to be 14-year-old boys, and then we have to let the girls in too. Then,
yeah.
I mean, it just opens up a bigger mess than what we see on the surface. And I'm thinking as we get further away from the people that put the Constitution together, we think we're wiser than they are. Mm-hmm. We just, as you could say, the same with scriptures that, so it's definitely a mistake. But, I think it's underlining the whole thing is I think it's the subtle way of the enemy is to attack the family, divide the kids from the mother, and destroy the woman who produces the children.
Yeah.
That's a strong way to divide the nation.
Thank you, Timothy from Waukesha. Appreciate that call. We're moving along. Got a couple of vacant lines right now. 800-733-9829. 800-733-9829. We'll take your calls. Regarding, women in combat. We're talking frontline stuff. We're talking about hand-to-hand combat, maybe. You can never tell what this is going to involve. And so now Mr. Panetta has thrown down the gauntlet, and he says, free for anybody. But then the question is, as was well raised by Nancy Joe, that if you're like a firefighter, your partner who you're working with, their life is in your hands. And your life is in their hands. And if there's equal capabilities of sustaining life or protecting you, that's one thing. But if there's a physical deficit there, the inability to carry certain amounts of weight or to deal muscularly in issues that require strength, what's going to happen? Let's go right now to Michigan. And Michigan, you're on the air.
Hey, Vic, thank you so much for this. I'm glad somebody's talking about this. I thought I was the only one out here. It's going to make it even worse, the lines between, and I'm glad you mentioned it, but I want to amplify it. It's going to make the lines between men and women blurrier, and the differences. Are they so ashamed of their differences? It is just amazing to me. I'm a blind man. I'm disabled. I have a lot of needs here, and I've been single all my life. And, coming out of the gay lifestyle, but it's amazing when you date women these days, so many of them, Vic, are manly. They're not even feminine anymore. It's like talking to a man. They act like men and they talk like men. And you can't find hardly anywhere anymore a woman that wants to be at home or wants to take care of children and now they're going to be fighting on the front lines, and it makes them even less feminine. And I appreciate, Nancy Joe, your call, Nancy. I wish more women would call, because when a man says this stuff, well, you know how we're looked at.
Thank you very much, Harry. We're going to be right back in 60 seconds.
Does God really exist? The demand of every skeptic is prove it. Of course, making a decision to accept the gospel is a matter of faith, but there is much evidence to verify its claims. VCY America introduces you to the DVD Startling Proofs, a fast-moving 60-minute docudrama pointing out the discoveries in science, creation, and archaeology, which are convincing the most determined skeptics to take a second look. You'll see how genetic research points to a divine creator, how mathematics and physical laws disprove the Big Bang, how biology disproves evolution, how astronomy points to a young Earth, and many other startling proofs. Many have used this DVD to share with their unsaved friends and loved ones. To receive your copy of Startling Proofs, send a donation of $10 or more to VCY America, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208. To make your donation by phone, call 1-800-729-9829, 1-800-729-9829.
And welcome back to Crosstalk. Today we're talking about women in combat, and again, bringing back to the issue, of course, that will equal treatment subject women to register for the draft. And, well said earlier in the program, but we bring it back to you, meaning that when your daughter is 18, she would have to register for selective service. This is kind of scary. And then we talk about what's happening with the various military equipment that is requiring strength to do it. And if there's not enough strength. Now, the issue, of course, and we read this earlier, the idea of lowering the standards of military requirements. Let's ask the question. I mean, it was a general statement from somebody over in the Pentagon. Was it Panetta himself or somebody? I forget the name of the person. But the issue of lowering the standards, now that's a general term, but if you're training marksmen to be able to hit the target, and they are a marksman, an expert, and they shoot, and they hit the target, and they hit it every time because of their skill. But let's say that someone else who can't lift a heavy military gun, like whatever, comes in, and after all, we don't have to really hit the target, just come near it. We lower our standards. And who knows what standards will be lowered? Well, enough of my comment. Let's go back to Warsaw, Indiana. And Warsaw, Joanne, welcome to the program. On the shores of Winona Lake, right?
Right. I haven't heard anyone discuss about what's going to happen to these girls if they're taken prisoner.
Oh, yeah.
They're not going to be treated like the men if they're taken prisoner.
No, rape and murder?
Yep.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Joanne, for sharing that.
You're welcome.
These are serious questions, folks, and this is your chance to discuss it. Our phone number, 800-733-9829. Let's go right now to West Bend and talk with Karen. And Karen, you're on the air.
Hello. I would like to know if Mr. Panetta gave thought to what happens with the women that already are in the military. They join not signing up with the knowledge that they might be sent to the front lines. Will this be held against them? Has that even been given consideration?
Oh, that's a good question, Karen. Because, there's an open season on any woman now that no one's restricted. But again, it comes back to the thing, if they're not restricted, then they become objects that will be required. Wow.
Yes, and I love this country. I would take up arms to defend her, but I don't think women should be put on the front lines. I am not being sexist when I say that. I just do not think that we are physically as capable. Plus, if I was captured and they knew that I was a mother and threatened me with, we're going to kill your child unless you spill this information, I would be more apt to do so as a woman. Not saying that a father doesn't love his child as much as a mother does, but we're more emotional creatures. That's just the way we're made.
Yeah.
But thank you for taking my call, and I appreciate that someone's talking about this.
God bless you, Karen. Thank you so much.
God bless you, too. Good.
Let's go to, let's see, who's up next here? We're going to Denise in Milwaukee. And Denise, you're on the air. Hello, Denise.
Hi, how are you?
Just fine, thank you.
I think it's ridiculous, and it's just an assault on humankind. I think there's a hidden agenda, and we will see the effects of this later on, also in society where women are already disrespected and not held up the way God intended them to be. And if this happens, it's like, who are you? You're just like a man, you know. And I think they're just taking and making, it's like we're just one people when God had distinctions and jobs, definitely for men and definitely for women.
Denise, thank you. Thank you very much for calling. Let's go to Monroe, Wisconsin. And Monroe, you're on the air.
Hi. Yeah, the whole idea is just it's morally wrong. It's physically wrong. I mean, the dangers that women will be put in, with the capture and the rape, murder, and the temptation that's in there with, even our own men and women. I mean, there have been reports of out of wedlock, pregnancies. And a man tends to want to protect the backs of a woman. They see a woman and they want to, protect her. Well, then they're not protecting their own back with the enemy. And
right.
It's just it's just wrong, flat out wrong.
And already, can you find out by the number of abortions that are occurring in military hospitals?
Yeah.
It's already happening.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Appreciate the call. Let's move right along to Mobile, Alabama, and talk with Wendy. And Wendy, you're on the air. Hello, Wendy.
Hello?
Yes, you're on the air.
Okay. You got bleeped out for a minute. Okay, the last three women have said everything that I wanted to say, but I want to add something. I'm 52 years old. I remember in my 20s and had a daughter. And this came up. They actually had, I can't name the programs, but programs on TV comparing the differences. I can't repeat what the last three women said, so I'm just going to add this.
Sure.
They had programs on TV comparing women's and men's physical abilities, and they talked about how far you have to throw a grenade, how far a man has to throw a grenade to be able to qualify for even to throw a grenade. And they had many women, and they could not throw the grenade far enough to get it away for safety and not to blow up your own people. And what they decided they're going to do is decrease the footage. They're going to decrease the distance a grenade has to be thrown. And this goes back to, lowering the standards so a woman can meet the line. And it's wrong, and I'd hate to be a woman on the front line that killed my troops because I couldn't throw a grenade or load a gun fast enough or carry the artillery that's needed to be carried. Men have more muscle mass in their upper body. They have more muscles in their shoulders. That's for lifting. We have bent arms. Our bones and our arms are bent to cradle babies, not to carry artillery. And I think God put men first to protect his family. Amen. And we're the family. And when this bleeds over into our society, when it bleeds over, we're going to pay over here. Yeah. We're not going to be cradling our babies while our men are fighting for our country. So downfall of the country, and we are only as strong as our weakest link.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you, Wendy.
Okay.
God bless you from Mobile, Alabama. Appreciate those comments. And moving right along here to Michael in Pensacola, Florida. Michael, you're on the air.
Yes, sir. I agree with all your callers so far. Like I said, putting women on frontline military is just ridiculous. There are a lot of places you could be in administration, nurses, doctors, and bringing equipment forward, that kind of stuff. But like I said, that's just about as silly as putting women on submarines.
God bless you. Thank you very much, Michael. From Pensacola, we go to Ohio. And Ken, in Ohio, our phone number 800-733-9829. Mike or Ken, are you with us in Ohio? Okay, something happened and we lost Ken. And we're going to go to Hubble, Michigan, and talk with Kate. And Kate, you are on the air. Hello, Kate.
Kate, hi.
You are on the air.
Sorry about that. It makes me crazy because everybody seems to forget that the number one reason that men are qualified for this kind of thing is that they are loaded up with testosterone by God's plan. Women do not have the load of testosterone. That's why women are weaker, muscular speaking. And I think it's just ridiculous that those people in government forget that, and women forget that. And we've already set a precedent by women that are willing to abandon their children, not to mention their husband, to go and be deployed for up to a year. And the Apostle Paul spoke of how that mankind would be given over to unnatural attraction. Yeah. And we often think of that as being, a sexual attraction, but in fact, women that want to be men and do these dangerous things, even beat officers who have husbands and children at home, that want to go out and risk their lives and at risk abandoning their children if they get shot in service. And so this whole front lines thing is just another step. And you have to ask, what kind of woman is willing to abandon her children and leave home and be doing this? It's just that the classic Apostle Paul talk about unnatural attraction.
Kate, there was one other thing, too. These are allegedly intelligent people who run our military. But all they have to do is look at the TV and go to the sports programs and find out that there are women's sports and there are men's sports. They don't mix the two.
Well, that's exactly right.
And the reason for that is because of their physical abilities.
Well, that's exactly right.
But here you got guys who are running the military who in some ways seem like they're a court low, in my opinion.
Well, in order for women to be able to, I don't know why women feel like they've got to be equal to men. I really don't, except for spiritual depravity.
Yeah.
But in order for them to do what men need to do on the front lines, they need to shoot up with testosterone just like the muscle builders do. The big muscular women, that's another unnatural attraction, is the women who shoot up with heavy loads of testosterone in order to build up with these ridiculous muscles. And so I just see it as one more step towards the total breakdown of spirituality in this country. It's just another example of spiritual depravity.
Kate, thank you very much. From Hubble, Michigan, we are going to go to Ohio. John in Ohio. John, you're on the air.
Hi, yes. I remember seeing a documentary a while back that they were talking about during the World War I. They would train men to be marksmen with circular targets, the bullseye. Mm-hmm. And then later, what would happen would be they would deploy them, and they couldn't shoot another human being. So I'm thinking, even though, we want equal rights and we want everything, to be able to do everything that the men do, there's still not the same emotion there to be able to kill another human being, because the men couldn't do it. So what they had to do is they had to change their method of thinking to make the targets look like people. Yeah, so it was just, it was just something that I remember, and you transfer that into what we're talking about today, thinking about ladies doing that type of thing. It's just kind of an interesting concept. So. Unless maybe they are out there doing the video games too. I mean, that's a good possibility too. But shooting each other with those things, I just can't imagine how this is all going to play out.
Thank you, my friend. Thanks for calling. And John, appreciate your call from Ohio. We'll be right back in 60 seconds with the final round here on Crosstalk. Stay with us.
For the Worldview Weekend Minute, I'm Brandon House. Our website is worldviewweekend.com. Recently, a conference was held in Atlanta, Georgia, with 65,000 college students in attendance. I had some serious trouble with some of the teachers that were there and what they were saying that did not line up with Scripture. But in addition to that, the entire conference had a theme of ending slavery. Now, as Christians, we certainly are opposed to slavery. We're opposed to sex trafficking and the sex slave industry. But is the solution to that more government? Is the solution the United Nations? Is the solution international law, international treaties through the United Nations? Is the solution social justice? And indeed, many students who attended told me that was the theme of the weekend. And from what I've heard via audio, that was the case. The solution to the evil, sinful practices that we find in our world is not socialism or social justice or a social gospel, but a biblical gospel that sets spiritual slaves free.
And welcome back to Crosstalk. As we're coming down the home stretch here, we have calls coming in from all over, 800-733-9829. We're going to go to South Dakota and talk with Charles in Madison, South Dakota. And Charles, you're on the air.
Yeah, getting back to the scripture in the Bible, Hebrews 13:8 says Jesus is the same today, yesterday, and forever. And then you go back and you look in Genesis 3, 4, and 5, where Eve is talking to the serpent, Satan, and he lies to Eve and tells Eve, you won't surely die, and you'll become as gods. And if you think about that, that's what's happening to the whole country, not just with women, but everybody. We want to become gods ourselves. We want to be looked at. We want to be looked upon. We want to be praised. We want everybody to worship us. And that's not the way it is. God sets down his word, and that's the way things should be. And I believe that if the women do not want to go on the front line, they need to speak up, the ones that are in the military, and tell Panetta and everybody else that, hey, this is not right. It's not the right time yet. So, it's just going back to Scripture to where, Satan is lying to Eve and getting all things messed up.
Charles, this is a time when thousands and thousands of people need to be on the phone talking to their legislators as well. Yep. Because they're the ones that represent us. Exactly. And we sit here and wring our hands oftentimes when it would be good if we get on the phone and call the representatives that represent us there and share what America really believes, what they stand for. And your call is greatly appreciated, Charles, from Madison, South Dakota. That's over there near Mitchell, right?
Yep, about 60 miles east of Mitchell.
God bless you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Let's go to Olney, Illinois. And Dorothy, you're on the air.
Yes. I'm from England originally, and over there they don't take married women in the service, and all the people that are women in the service, called up, gone, even if their husbands are in the service. There might be a case here and there where the woman's allowed to stay in after she marries somebody, but if she gets the family way, out she goes. And in this country, they try to stay there and let their mother or someone else take care of their children. That's all wrong. And so over in England, they did all the post office work and all the paperwork and all the keeping track and, all the other jobs that's behind the scenes that we have our men do now. That frees up all the men so the women could take care of all the other things that there's an awful lot of things.
And usually clerical work is done better by women than men anyway.
Yeah, and they're all in the back lines, and usually when you get married, they throw you out of the service. They're only for single women, but they're in where they move the latest news coming from the front. They'll have a long stick, and they'll push our men's lines over here that we've got this far, and then there's ordering and supplying all the needs they need out there on the front line and all that stuff. Postmen's and letter changing and finding which boat they have to take the mail to, the port where the boat's coming in, and there's millions of people in the background that our men are doing that women could do, and that's where women should be. Like you say, they don't have the stamina. In a foxhole is the wrong time in the month, and a woman shouldn't be anywhere.
Dorothy, we're going to have to move along, and thank you for calling. I've got 3 more calls, and we've got about less than 2 minutes. So thank you so much, Dorothy from Olney. Appreciate that so much. We're going to move right now to Glendale, Wisconsin, and Jamie, very tight on time. Go right ahead.
Hi. I think I'm the only person who's yet gotten through, at least, who disagrees, who couldn't be more appalled at the sexism and the insults to both men and women, that men don't love their children, that if they're killed in combat, that, the kids are less harmed, or that men aren't brutalized when they're captured, or that, on the other hand, women are only good for raising kids that men aren't able to do?
Before you go further, Jamie, because we're limited on time, Jamie, if you'll take a break, and I'll talk with you. Otherwise, we're going to have to cut it off.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me ask you the question, Jamie. Have you ever served in combat?
No, I've served with combat people.
No, have you ever served in combat? Okay. Do you have children?
Yeah.
Okay. You may want to sacrifice your kids and not protect them, but I would think that the natural preservation nature of a parent would be to take care of and protect and even be willing to die for your kids. So I hope you understand where we're coming from, Jamie, and understand you're frustrated. That happens to be your view. Appreciate that. Mary in Gays Mills, Wisconsin. Mary, you're on the air.
Hi. I've got 3 kids, and I just think of the oldest is 3. I was just thinking how Pharaoh in Egypt, he said, go and serve your God, but leave your children. And it's just another way the world is trying to get a hold of our children. And, it's very physically draining for me to be able to take care of 3 kids. And I can't imagine after going to combat and losing a leg or something like that, having kids afterwards. I mean, it takes a lot of work for me to keep up with my 3-year-old son. And it's not protecting the children that we do have. It's letting the world able to get a hold of them, and it's not protecting the children that we are yet to have if these Christian men and women are going to battle.
Mary, thank you so much. We've come to the end of our time. I want to thank you for being with us. Mary from Gays Mills, Wisconsin, and all of you folk all across the country. Thanks for joining us today. Don't just sit there and stew about it. Call your legislators. Call them and let them know what you think about this. Because, after all, we do have representative government. At least I thought we did. But may I suggest that just having a tempest in a teapot, why don't you pick up the phone and let them know how you as an American feel. Contrary to Mr. Panetta's, he's stepping down, and then before he steps down, he makes a decree that he won't have to live with. Thanks for joining us on Crosstalk.
Listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Take Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208, or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.